See to it that no one takes you captive through hollow and deceptive philosophy which depends on human tradition and the elemental spiritual forces of this world rather than on Christ. Colossians 2:8. We live in an age where theology has become either a Twitter battleground or a museum exhibit, either reduced to 280 character heresies or preserved behind academic glass where it can't touch actual human suffering. This episode is about what happens when robust biblical truth collides with the mess of real life, and why most apologetics fail the hospital test, and how to love God with your mind without becoming the Pharisee you swore you'd never be. Hi, I'm Dustin. This is Christianity and Pop Culture Podcast. Thank you for joining me today. And today we are going to discuss some fun. First, we're going to start off with the failure of intellectual Christianity. The modern evangelical obsession with winning arguments has produced a generation that can dismantle new atheism over coffee, but can't sit quietly with a grieving widow. Consider. 1. The apologetics paradox. We've created an entire ministries dedicated to proving God's existence through logic and evidence, yet the most converted demographic remains those who encounter Christ through suffering, not syllogisms. The book of Job contains 37 chapters of theological debate and exactly one effective argument. Then the Lord spoke. 2. The seminary to soup kitchen disconnect. There exists an inverse relationship between theological education and actual poverty engagement in most denominations. The churches with the most precise statements on predestination tend to have the vaguest programs for feeding the poor. This isn't coincidence. It's a crisis. 3. When doctrine becomes defense mechanism. I've watched theologians use the doctrine of God's sovereignty as a shield against compassion more often than as a comfort in suffering. The same people who can articulate the communicable attributes of God with precision will walk past a homeless veteran without breaking stride. This isn't theology. This is theological malpractice. The day that you walk by somebody that's in need is the day that you need to question yourself, and I've done it in the past too. Actually, there's times when I sat there like, should I help? What do I do? Should I help? What do I do? And keep walking. We need to remember what Christ said. What did he say? He says that for those feet that you wash my feet. Those that you clothe and feed, you do the same for me. So all those that need help, that you actually help, it's like doing it for Christ. You're doing his will. You're doing his job, helping each other. So let's do some case studies here in earthly theology. Well, we're going to go to 1, the nursing home test. Take any theological position you hold dearly: Calvinism, egalitarianism, covenantal theology, and ask, how does this help an Alzheimer's patient remember they're loved by God? If your answer begins with, well, technically, you've already failed. The early church grew because they loved widows, not because they won debates about widows. How about 2, the funeral litmus? I once attended a funeral where the deceased theology professor spent 20 minutes assuring us the man's correct views on justification before mentioning he was kind to children. The Apostle Paul wrote most of his theology to resolve practical church conflicts, not to fuel seminary rivalry. 3, the prison experiment. Visit any maximum security prison and you'll find 2 types of Christian ministries. Those teaching inmates how to praise Greek verbs, and those teaching them how to forgive their fathers. Only one has measurable impact on recidivism rates. Okay, so what about reclaiming mindful faith? Well, 1, the anti-intellectualism trap. In rightly critiquing dry intellectualism, we must avoid the opposite error of celebrating willful ignorance. Jesus commanded love of God with all of our mind. The issue isn't thinking deeply, but thinking deeply about the right things. 2, the hospital chaplain model. The best theological training I ever received was serving as a hospital chaplain, where no one cared about my views on the millennium. Everyone needed to know if God saw their pain. My Hebrew exegesis, can't even pronounce that word properly, skills mattered less than my ability to hold a vomiting pan. 3, the Mary-Martha synthesis. We turn Mary and Martha into archetypes of contemplation versus action, but the text suggests a deeper truth. Real theology happens when sitting at Jesus' feet transforms how we set the table. So how does this correspond with my band, The Autopsy of the King? Well, the Autopsy of the King paradox. My deathcore project intentionally marries intellectual theology with visceral emotion because the cross was both a meticulously prophesied event and act of raw violence. Truth should be felt in the gut before analyzed in the mind. There are no mosh pits in heaven, but there might be something better. Make sure to find us on Spotify and YouTube to experience the systematic theology screamed over dissonant guitars. All right, so this week, take one theological conviction and express it to a child. Apply it to social injustice and weep over its implications. Make sure to weep. Truly weep. If you can't do all 3, you don't understand it yet. So let's get with some closing scripture here. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. John 13:35. Again, I want to repeat this because so many people don't understand this. They hear it, but they don't practice it. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. John 13:35. So next week, when prayer becomes performance, until then, love God with your whole mind, but don't forget your hands.